you can even mark it, right? Okay, this is what you can create a schedule when you want to target of completing that specific section. The way I did this was based on my API rotations. So if I knew I was going to a certain API rotation, and it was, let's say, at Kaiser, and I knew I was going to do a lot of antibiotics. So what I did was I made sure I was reviewing my antibiotics prior to that rotation. So not only did I look good for my rotation, but I also was reviewing it and reinforcing it by actually seeing the medications, actually experiencing it, actually compounding it. So it was more, almost like I've read it, I reviewed it, I saw it, it's all of it. You do an entire circle rather than just reading it and then that's it. You get a full hands-on experience. So that's another thing I would say. And then really like creating a plan, just making like a schedule, a realistic schedule. Don't think you're going to do this overnight. So make a realistic schedule that you can follow and go through it. As you can see, it says 2020 Netflix, there's 440 subscriptions. These are all these information that as you do it, it's going to access more. So if we did, let's say, learning basics, right? No, that's not what I want. Medication. Top sellers. Okay, here goes. Top sellers. So this is a great opportunity. As you can see, it has 3 parts. Each one has about 50 drugs. So I would say you should do this like every week. You should start on, step 1, step 2, step 3. Even if you've done it, do it again, do it again, do it again. The more you do it, the more the brand generic is going to make sense. Like Prevacid. How many of you guys know the answer to this question? You guys can put it on the chat. I can't see the chat. So what do you guys think the answer to this question is? And if you guys need me to zoom in, I'll zoom in. Does this look better? Okay, I saw 1. So what if I said, yep. So you guys are getting it, right? But if you didn't, right, this is a good opportunity to learn. So you just go next. It really takes a matter of seconds to do this, right? So you can go over 50 in about 10, 15 minutes. And then do it again and do it again. Regardless of if you know it or not, multiple times. And then say it out loud. Say it like, don't just do it, say it out loud. Lastly, let's say this question, right? Let's say I know the answer to this question. He said, you know what? I think
Can you please mute your phone?
Okay. The answer to this question was Abreva. Is that right? Is the answer to this question Abreva? Yes. So I saw someone say no. Correct. It's not, right? So then, you know what? I put a heart. Because when I'm reviewing, I want to make sure I'm able to see this question again. Because I want to make sure, you know what? I didn't get this question right. And this is a question I want to work on it. So this is what the benefits of this. In this situation, when you click feedback, right? So for instance, we said Abreva was the wrong one, but we're going to collect it. As you see, you get feedback, right? If you mark this feedback off, it will not give you this feedback. Okay? In this situation, it really doesn't matter because it's brand and generic, right? It'll tell you if you got it right or wrong. But in some questions, having the feedback button on is great because it gives you additional information, whether you get it right or wrong, explaining more information about it. Here's something I also want to mention is regarding the calculator. On your Naplex, your calculator is going to be 1,000,000 times better than this calculator. Okay? 1,000,000 times better on the calculator. So do not stress over this calculator. They give you a TI, virtual TI, which I absolutely loved. It gives you multiple columns, so you can actually do, let's say, entire like credit and clearance all in one, inside the calculator, so you don't have to worry. But if you click out of it or get out of it, it will wipe everything you have here. It will go back to 0. It'll clean it up. So it will be blank again. So make sure you use the scratch piece of papers to write down some of your answers when you are using the calculator. So in case you accidentally clicked away or something like this and it disappeared, you don't start from scratch again. Also, if you ever get an osteoporosis question, phenytoin question, questions like that, always do the calculation. Corrected calcium, corrected phenytoin, do those. If they ever give you, in some questions on Anaplex, it'll be basic brand and generics such as this. Yes, they will have one or two. Or even a drug class. They will say, what drug class is this drug in? That will be the most easy question you will have on Anaplex. Sometimes where you don't even have to look at the lab portion, right? Because they give you the lab on the left side and then the question on the right side. And then there's going to be others that you really need to think about what is being asked. That being said, if you do not know the question, don't waste your time. Make an educated guess and move on. Because regardless if you spend a minute or an hour, you're still going to get more likely, you have 50% of getting that question right if you made an educated guess, right? If you eliminated two. So don't stress over it, because do not let that one question impact the other remaining 249 questions. Because if you do, you're going to make mistakes because you're stressing over a question you've already skipped. Regardless if you knew it, you made a mistake, read it, or whatever the reasons are. Do not worry about the previous question. The previous question is done with, you can't do nothing about it. Just move on. That would be the things I would say is time management, not really stressing over a mistake you made, because you never know if that's the question they're dropping. They drop 50 questions out of the 250. So don't stress. There's 250 questions already. So first of all, there's a lot of questions. So there's room to make mistakes. You know what I mean? You just don't want to make too many mistakes, because then that might be the difference between passing and failing. But yeah, honestly, I would encourage every single one of you guys to get in here and really learn about it. So this is another section that's important, because as you can see, there's dates, right? This is what the changes that have happened since the 2020. So I believe you guys are going to get the 2021, right, Rosemary, once it comes out. So yeah, once the 2021 book comes out, you guys are going to get that as well. So this is the previous generation for your previous cohort classes. For their classes, right now, it says guidelines updated. So review these things. Might be also a good opportunity to review prior to rotation. This are some of the things that have changed regarding drug class, guidelines, laws. So review this stuff. That's really what I would say. Oh, and the last thing I would say is, me personally, I love drug cards. That I believe it's our library has it. It's a binder. It's like the 35th edition and has drug cards on it. Go over those. Do every day. Do like 10. Right. What I used to do is right before bed, I would take those cards, go over 10 of them immediately, and then spend about a minute and then go to sleep. The next day, I would do another 10, but I would also review the previous 10. I wouldn't try to memorize it all at once. I would just read it real quick. So that will also help out learning the brand, generic, and indications. That's really it for now. I mean, I think Rosemary is going to get a chance to go over some of the the board competency section. So when you do get a chance, she's going to log into here and then go to this board competency. And there's going to be a lot of great information here when you go to content. So definitely take the time and review some of these topics. Not only will it talk about what you need to do if you pass, fail, and so forth, like as well, but it also has like different like mnemonics we mentioned, the biostat review, licensing resources. So there's a lot of great resources at the Board of Competency, I guess, on Brightspace. And I believe Rosemary's going to jump into it, so I'll let her do that. Unless you guys have questions for me, please.
Yeah, thank you, Armin. Does anyone have questions about the ARCS Prep series or the portal, the book or the portal? Tips for use. If you want to be brave, you can ask a question now. Armin's going to go, so he won't be around for the end of the series.
You can also reach out. Sorry, I was going to say you can also reach out with me even after this as well. Contact me through email or phone number. It doesn't matter. I'd be happy to give you additional information or answer any additional questions. But yeah, please answer your question.
Okay, so I was wondering if you guys recommend listening to the modules. Some of them are like a couple hours long, especially if it's something that we feel like we really need to review. Do you recommend those?
Personally, I did not watch the videos, but I know some of my classmates did, and they really liked them. It depends, like you said. Maybe you're reading a specific section and it's just not sticking. You're just having a difficulty time. Maybe you just need it from a different perspective. Maybe just watching the video will help. And you don't have to watch the entire video. You can watch the sections you're having difficulty, memorizing or learning. So maybe if we're talking about like antibiotics, you're not having problems with like, penicillin. You're just having problems with, let's say, I don't know, the meropenems or, the clindamycin or, metronidazole, nitrofurantoin. Then you could just rewind to that section and just watch that section and get the necessary information needed.
Okay, that makes sense. Thank you.
Else? That was a good question, Kim. I'll just add one more little snippet to that question, which is a lot of people can read something and be fooled that they know it. So if you're going to skip something, it's probably okay to skip the video, but don't skip the practice questions in the module. You got to do the practice questions, or else you're not quite sure if you know it or don't know it. That's the danger of fooling yourself to think you're better than you are after a quick skim.
I'm glad you mentioned that. That kind of brought me to one. If you ever have to guess the question, assume you got the question wrong. Because if you have to guess, then you don't know it. You may have guessed right on the, on the RX Prep website, but does not mean you're going to guess right on Naplex. So don't take the chance. So if you have to guess it, just put a heart, mark them a heart, review that section one more time. It might take another 10, 15 minutes, but at least you reinforce that subject. So therefore, when it comes to Naplex, when it comes to what really counts, you don't get that question wrong because you guessed wrong this time.
Thank you, Armin. So are you ready?
I'm ready.
Okay. Armin may have to split, guys, but as he said, you can send him a note if you have follow-up questions. And we'll try to bring him back along the way. Thank you, Armin.
Okay, can you all see my screen? You should be seeing the Brightspace page.
Yes.
Okay, I'll be really brief. I just want to make sure that you all know where to find the courses that you're enrolled into. So the first course is right here, the Board Competency Fall 2020. This is the course where, for this course, you are currently enrolled. You are all in this course. All of the materials, announcements, grading, everything will be loaded in this course room, just like when you were in your didactics. So that's how we will use this course. For the board prep resources, this is what Armin was touching on a little bit. I will also send this out in an email, just so you guys remember the name. This class is open to all students. Armin had shared with you that this is where we are trying to upload any resources that we feel may help with board prep. Armin has really been key in uploading material. So I'll go ahead and get into the content just so you guys can briefly see what is in here. A lot of this Armin uploaded. So you'll see that there's, we have a lot of exam basics. There's just pass rates, a lot of information that we shared with you. It's pretty well organized thanks to Armin. You'll see tables and charts in here, different resources that faculty have uploaded in here as far as CPK, practice exams, law, CPJE. A lot of information in here that you guys can go through. Mnemonics. Sorry about that. Armin uploaded this in here as well. This is what he was touching on a little bit. So you guys have all of that in here. All of the capstone sessions from this past cohort that went through the 3-week capstone after graduation, we recorded those sessions and have put them in here. So if you guys click on any session, you should be able to see them. Some of them have a recorded session as well as material. Some may only have material. Some may only have the session. You'll have to click through each one. It just kind of depends on what was available. But there is a lot of good information in here. They're pretty well organized based on the topic. And we will continue to add to this. So anytime something is uploaded, any new material becomes available, you will get the alert that these have been added. So I encourage you to continue to utilize this page, continue to check in here, because we are constantly uploading. So this classroom will only get bigger. You can click on, here's a Zoom session from Dr. Hughes on contraception, and you guys should be able to play all of the videos. Yeah, so you guys will be able to play all of his videos and view his handouts. And that goes for anything that's in here. Do you guys have any questions about the classrooms? If you do, please reach out to me. Dr. Ofsted and myself are great resources for you. Anything that we can help with, but I would make sure that you these as your favorites, because you guys are enrolled. You guys are enrolled in both, but we will really need you to make sure that you're checking in as much as you can into the board competency course. All the announcements, again, will be on there. I will try to remember to email out as much as possible. But again, this is the course you're enrolled in, and everything will be uploaded in here. Okay, I will go ahead and turn it over to Dr. Ofsted.
Rosemary.
Mm-hmm.
So any questions from anybody about the resources that are in the Brightspace? You may not know what you need out of that section now, but I can guarantee you that you're going to want to dig into that resource page as you move along. Particularly, it's got nice kind of compact pearls and tips and resources that'll help you kind of get past a roadblock or barrier. A lot of that material was built after somebody asked us a question like, I need help with this, or how should I study for NAPLEX, or I'm really feeling overwhelmed and fearful about the process. And so those are kind of resources that we built as people came up with, I need help with this. And so we may also, if you come ask us a question, we may remember there's that really nice resource waiting for you in the board prep course, and we might send you back there to get that resource and use it. So there's a really good one about, for example, I can just guess right now where we're at. A lot of people are kind of in the middle of transition, right? You're moving out to APPEs. You're trying to get board ready now. You've heard from the upperclassmen that things are getting serious and they're holding everybody to account to try to get to the certain performance. With that comes anxiety and fear. And so there's a really nice TED Talk in that series called Defining Your Fears Instead of Defining Your Goals. That TED Talk is extremely useful for you to kind of unpack the anxiety and help make it productive and useful rather than overwhelming. So if you find that it's not your plan that's making you get stuck, it's your anxiety or your fear about the process, go there and watch that TED Talk and then come talk to us and we'll work with you. We want you to be productive and positive and on a good track. Okay, speaking of that, I'm going to share my screen. I've got a few simple slides just to kind of help walk us through some ideas. Let me get my share just a moment. Okay, everybody, can you see the thing that says Board Competency Class of 2021?
Yes.
Or did I get it wrong?
I can see it.
Okay. Thanks. Okay. We kind of did this agenda already by email, but the big things that we're going to work on today are you've already done your progress test. You've gotten a little bit of strategies and how to use some of the resources. I'm going to talk a little bit more about getting ready for the mindset part. We're also going to talk a little bit about using, so I'll just say right off the bat, when people have already come, a few people have already come and asked me, what should I do to get started, Dr. Ofsted? And I'll just say the first thing that's got to be rock solid in your board prep is calculations. So calculations is the bane of every pharmacy student existence. It seems to be the thing that you can learn and then it starts to fade and then you got to learn it again. And a lot of it is more than just knowing stuff. It's having good and efficient process. So not only do you got to do the calculations well, you got to do them quickly, because if you bog down on calculations, it'll make you suffer on the rest of the board exams. So we're going to have some practice time in a calculations module today. We've got a nice tool for helping you kind of load balance your studying across the year. And we've got an Excel sheet that auto-calculates study times. I'm going to work you through a little bit of that in case you want to use it. I've got a sample of PCOA scores, and I'll talk about next steps on PCOA and how we can use it to make good progress. We can use the PCOA results as kind of an early indicator on where board scores might start going. So that's the agenda for today. There's question time at the end, and if you have additional agenda items you want to kind of raise at that time, you're welcome to. Also, as we're kind of going through, if you got a passionate idea or question you want to get out, feel free to just pause me, and we'll take a break, and I'll either answer it right then, or Rosemary, or I'll try to jot down a note, and we'll get back to it by the end. Are we good for at least orienting what we're going to do? Pretty good. So have I shown you this slide before? Somebody say out loud if they've seen it before. I've shown it to quite a few of the classes during like your first week in orientation. I think I might have shared it with your class too. So this is basically the path. This is the path that we're all on. And it's kind of a metaphor in my mind. I feel like we see those little rocks and pebbles in the bottom corner, and that's our life right now. We see the detail. But we also have a mountain ahead of us. We got to find a way to get over that mountain. And the funny reason I show this also during orientation is because whatever mountain's in front of you, that's the one that's in front of you, but you're going to get over that mountain, and then there'll be a new mountain. So I've got my mountain. It looks a little different than yours, but it's a mountain too that I have to cross. And when I was a P4 student, we didn't call them P4s back then, but when I was a P4 student, I had a mountain to climb, which was board exams. And I'm sure between APPEs and board exams, that's the mountain you probably feel in front of you. The nice thing about thinking about this trail is there's a path that's ahead of you. You don't have to take it. You can take that long way around if you want, but it might be harder. So we're trying to show you the way with this path, and we're going to walk with you on this path, but it's your mountain. You got to cross it. That's kind of the metaphor I want to share. But we all have faced a mountain. And so, I mean, I have sympathy. I have empathy. I want your success, and so does Rosemary, and so does Armin, and so does every faculty member in the program. So does the new dean. On the other hand, if you stand still at the beginning of this path and you don't take this challenge on, we can't help you. That's the reality. We can't go with you on the path. You're going to be left behind. So the big idea here is we've got to make some progress, which is what these progress tests and this whole course is about. And we've got a mountain to climb. And I'm just asking for your permission and your buy-in to come with us. Can we take you with us on this journey? And can we make it your journey? And can you do what it takes to get over that mountain? And we'll be there to help. That's kind of what I'm asking for as part of this early process. So we have to at least come to that understanding if we're going to be successful together. And the reality is you're not walking the path alone. It's not just Dr. Ofsted and the faculty and Rosemary. It's all your colleagues and peers from the class. Everybody's on a similar path right now. We all have our strengths and weaknesses as we're trying to cross this mountain, but everybody's on this path. So let's try to make sure we don't leave anybody behind. I mean, in my mind, I'd love to have 100% of the people be successful in this course. I'd like for 100% of the people to pass the NAPLEX their first try because they know they're ready. And I think we've got some tools ready for you. And if you use them, you're going to be that ready when you're done. If you take chances, if you walk around a different way, if you play in that puddle that's in the middle of the screen for too long, you might get left behind, and that's going to be painful for everybody. So let's not do that. Let's kind of work together, take this path we're laying out, and be successful together. I can't read faces because I'm on virtual, but hopefully that makes sense to people. So, outcomes for today, really outcomes for the program. What do you want out of this process? What do you want out of today? What do you want out of tomorrow? What do you want out of the whole program? I think you should think about that, because if you don't have goals and you don't have confidence, it's real hard to make a plan and be successful. So if you've got goals but you're afraid, I mentioned that TED Talk. That's a good place to start, and you can come talk to us. If you got confidence but no goals, you will stand still. You'll think you'll be fine till the end. We call that the kick the can plan. The class of 2020 knows all about it. So does the class of 2019. Not everybody, but a lot of people said, I'm going to get to this business of board prep at the end. I'm going to go do it next May. I can tell you, not just from the data I've seen here at CHSU, but national data, data from ARCS Prep, data from other programs. There's so much evidence that if you wait till May, your chances of falling off the path and not making it over that hill are big. It is a high risk, low reward strategy to say, I'm going to kick this can down the road. It is not what you want to do. I don't know how to say it strongly enough. But here's what I'm competing against in your life. You got family. You got pressure. You got appies. Appies are asking you to do work. They may be grading you tough. It may be a new experience for you. It may be hard. But you got to find a way to stay on track on this path too. So I know I'm competing against a lot, which is what else is going. But if you kick the can, it's kind of saying, I'm confident, but I have no goals right now. I'm just going to wait. And that we're going to just keep walking as a class. We're going to look back and see you. So please don't make that your plan. We can't have a kick the can plan. So instead, we're going to get some outcomes. So if I had breakout rooms, I'd have you go do it. But this WebEx doesn't allow for breakout. So I think these are just a couple of reflection questions. Think about what you want out of this board review process. It can be today. If you want to chime in and tell me what you need today, I'm going to listen. And save that for me at the question answer phase at the end, and I'll punch that list with you. But if you have ideas past today, and you should certainly have some ideas on what you want to get done, let's think about that. If you want to debrief on that, you can do that with me and Rosemary. We're happy to talk more with you about it. Okay. So once we kind of figure out that we've got shared mindset, meaning we all want to get to the same place, we all think it's important to get there, we all agree that taking the path is the right way to get there, and that taking a different path or not taking any steps on that path are really not good ideas. They're very dangerous ideas, in fact. But now we need strategy, and that's kind of what Armin was starting to work with you on. So you've got a long list of board prep resources. That's good. You've got calculations modules, which is where you should aim some of your attention in the short term. That's short-term planning. And then we got to work with you on building a longitudinal study calendar. Because if you don't create a schedule, you don't work the schedule. That's the reality. People who don't make a calendar don't work on their board prep. That's just a known issue. So you got to build a calendar. Does that mean you got to block a whole day off every week to do it? Maybe not. Maybe you can get a half an hour done at lunchtime. Maybe you can get some stuff done after hours. The only caution I'll have is that I guarantee you that if you start using your appy time while you're out at rotations to study for ARCS Prep, your preceptor is going to either talk to you, or they're going to talk to us, or they're going to talk to everybody. They're going to say, Will is not supposed to be studying his ARCS Prep book while he's at the practice site. So I want to make that extremely clear, that when you make your plan for strategically for studying, you need to make that plan during breaks, during after hours, during weekends. You generally can't use the ARCS Prep book as a study tool for hours at a time during the rotation. And if you do, your preceptor is going to come back, and we're going to find out, and they may fail you on the rotation. I will say things like that have happened. If the preceptor loses trust with you at the site, they will ask you to leave. And it's that simple. And it's you can't really go to the dean and try to appeal your way out. It's not going to work. It's good because they're going to say, listen, the student's doesn't want to be here. And then once the site speaks like in that language, that's kind of it. So we got to put a plan together that gets you working weekends, breaks and lunch times, and evenings so that you get your study strategy for the year. The good news is we're kind of in process of building some additional meeting times in the system. So one of the changes we're likely to make between last year and this year is we're going to decrease the number of tests. We're going to increase some topic review days during the year. So we're going to have some review as we go. And we're going to try to be more helpful in that area. And more of that will come the next time we meet, most likely. We'll have that all outlined and ready to talk to you about. Okay. So what are some tools you got? Well, Armin already talked to you. You already got the 2020 NAPLEX book. So feel free. Some people rip that into bits and pieces and rebind it. They take the parts they want to study and they write all over it. Some people make notes on the first page and then the later pages they highlight. Whatever you do, you need to be able to use that book as a quick review. That's your goal. Read it, refresh with it, and then quick review later. Because when you get closer and closer to the test, there's no way you can reread all the chapters again. So you got to condense things down into quick review. So whatever way works for you on that. And there's 10 different ways I've heard students and past students and now alum say that they use it. The good news is with you guys is we've done something very special that I don't know if any other school gets this special advantage. You guys get one RX prep book in May. You get another one this fall, and I don't know the month. It's often like September. Looking at Rosemary to see if she's nodding or shaking.
Actually, this group's going to get 3 because you guys received the 2020, which is kind of complimentary because you wouldn't have had that otherwise if we didn't have COVID. So 2021 will be coming at the end of this month, I believe, and then you'll get another version next year.
Okay, so you'll at least get 2 and maybe 3 is what we're thinking. So you got the 2020 review book. I doubt they're going to get the 2022. I bet you they're getting the law book as the third. I bet that's what you're thinking.
I think that's it. I'm sorry. Yes, in the spring you'll get the law book.
Okay, so you get one right now. You get another one that's either almost here or coming in September. That's kind of how it always works. So as soon as we get it, we start pushing it to you guys. They're fairly similar, though, so it's not like you have to start over. If you do a bunch of good work on calculations in 2020, that's excellent. Keep going. And then in the spring, once the pharmacy law updates for California, they release another book, which is the CPJE review book. I'm just going to tell you, and others probably have told you this already, the California Jurisprudence exam, it's California Pharmacist Jurisprudence exam, the CPJE, sounds like a law exam, but it's more of a practice exam. It's written heavily by current practicing pharmacists in inpatient and community pharmacy settings. And so most of that test is actually, it's like NAPLEX plus more practical experience, things that you might be picking up on APPEs if you're paying attention on. So one of the best ways to study for the CPJE is to ask questions on your APPEs and be engaged on what is the work of the pharmacist. If you know what the pharmacists are doing, you know how they're making their decisions, and you know what they know, you're ready for the CPJE. There's a small section of the CPJE that's actually law. It's a minority of the test. It's probably less than 10% that's true law questions. So there's tons of practical clinical questions on CPJE and only a little bit of law. If you get really excited about the law, though, and you need a good review book, I would recommend you go back to the California Board of Pharmacy, and they have a community and an inpatient self-assessment audit, which are in the range of 15 pages each. Those are really good to know. You know California law at the level of a practicing pharmacist. And they're very good to get you ready for boards. They're also very good to get you ready in case you ever get audited if you're the pharmacist in charge. So it's California Board of Pharmacy. They have self-assessment audits for inpatient and community. And then there's also the newsletter called The Script at CPJE. So the script is also very useful at kind of keeping up with hot topics. And at the back of the script are all the people who lost their license. So you can read to see if your classmates are there in future years. So the script is sometimes a commonly discussed item when you get back together at alumni events. You're like, did you see that Dr. Ofsted's license got revoked? Aha. That didn't happen, by the way. But if you can see who's in trouble reading the script. It's on California Board of Pharmacy website. Okay, so I mentioned that we're working on something we're calling focused review days. So what we're going to try to do is when you guys take big comprehensive tests for us, we're going to try to look at kind of common areas of need for review. We're going to bring those back. So if everybody bombed diabetes, we're going to bring a diabetes speaker and we're going to try to do some more practice in diabetes on the focus days. So we're going to have some general stuff and some focus stuff. Okay, so that's kind of the big thing. And then if everybody probably knows, we run this course through effectively graduation. There's a grad week, which is the week before graduation ceremony. And the first couple of days of grad week, we have you here on campus. We give you more review days, and then we give you generally one last chance to pass your board competency course. And that is not the day you want to be taking that board competency test because your family's probably waiting for you at home, hoping that you pass so that you can graduate. If you don't, generally then we move you into a remediation phase, and that's what the capstone. We do 3 weeks of everyday review, so it's kind of kicking off your self-study anyways. You have to generally go to capstone if you haven't passed the course yet. You should go to capstone if you haven't rocked the scores yet. So if you've passed but you're kind of a weak pass, you should go to capstone. If you've been studying and you rock the tests and you're done with your board prep in March, you do what you want with capstone. It's up to you past that point. We're happy to have you. If you don't want to come, you don't have to. So that's kind of what capstone's about. It's a review, multi-week review, and it has more testing. Typically, we test you once or twice a week during capstone too. And faculty come in. If you want to see what some of those review days look like, we don't have the full day, but we have some of the review topics within the board prep course that Rosemary showed you on Brightspace. Okay. So I'm going to walk you through a few things. So I'm going to leave this PowerPoint for a second. And I'm going to try to show some tips from our perspective. Maybe this is a good transition point. Maybe there's questions from people or ideas or things we need to put into the Q&A section later that you want to seed the idea now. Anybody want to speak up and ask a question or share an idea? Are you being shy? Are you paralyzed with fear? Or are you surfing the internet? Which of those three are we dealing with right now? Or are you so fully confident that you don't have any questions?
Dr. Ofsted, I had a question.
Yeah.
Are you able to provide like the various study techniques that people have done in the past? Because I've talked to a few people, and some people just said, I read the book. Some people take notes. Some people make flashcards. Some people purchase the pharmacy charts, look at the drug cards. So there's various forms, and I know everybody has like a different style of studying, but maybe offering what's available to students. That way they know like what works for them.
Yeah, we I think we even have some slides made on that, Rosemary. Is that right? Didn't we have some slides that we gave in grad week on how different people study for the board?
I'll have to look. I'm going through the board prep resources right now to see if there's some of that in there, because I want to say that there is.
Yeah, Alan, Eugene, and Armin, who are all grads of this program, have all done a version of what you just said, what you just asked for. And I think we have a slide set posted in the board platforms. But we're going to find that. Exactly what you said, though, is right. Different people have different ways. The one I'm going to show you today is the way that ARCS Prep suggests. And the nice version of that one is it has a lot of self-assessment built in. So you know or don't know if you know a topic, which is nice. Many of the ways people use, they have a way, but we don't know if it works, right? All we know is you have to figure out sooner or later that it did or didn't work. But we want to kind of know along the way. I think that was Karen who asked the question. Is that right?
Yeah, that was me.
Okay, so what I'll do is let me kind of run through. I think Rosemary's going to try to pull from the board comp course and see if she can find the slides from past presentations. And then if that's not enough, we can bring other speakers in who, like we can bring in alums and recent students from the class of 2020 maybe. We could bring them into another session, or we could do an extra session just to talk about it, if that's what you feel like is the big question for you right now. But I'm going to give you a couple options. At least I'm going to show you the ARCS Prep suggested way, which I think is a strong method. But then there's other methods that people use, and you got to find a method. The good thing about that question is that you've already thought about what's the way that's going to work for me, and you got to start doing the work to find out by trying some things until you find a system that's smooth sailing for you. So let me hold on that a little bit past what I've just answered and come back. But I do have as the next element, I want to show you the ARCS Prep. I want to show you the ARCS Prep, how to ace your exam set. Anybody else have a question that they either want to get on an item for discussion or a question for me right now, based on what we've done so far? Okay, so if you have some, jot them down, and we'll get back to them at the end. So I'm going to, give me a second, I'm going to get the how to ace your ARCS Prep stuff up. Okay, so if you Google ARCS Prep how to ace anything, how to ace, you will jump into the ARCS Prep how to ace. I'm going to share my screen. Okay. So, everybody, hopefully you see this image. This is the path. Remember the path metaphor I used? They use it too. This is kind of your road to success. In their system, and I think you might have seen it briefly in Armin when he was doing the walkthrough of the portal. In their ARCS Prep system, they have a series of foundational assessment tests. Very basic tests to see if you know things like terminology, if you have a basic math skills. They suggest you take that, and I would add probably brand generic, because you should probably know quite a bit of brand generic by now. But if you don't, you'll know after you take it. Do some testing at baseline. We don't require it as part of the board competency course, but I think it's a good self-assessment to see, you're not going to be able to do pharmacy calculations if you're struggling with unit analysis or other basic math. And so if you take those tests and you're deficient in a way that's meaningful, you can ask for help, and we'll match you with somebody who can get you some help. So don't go too far into the system until you know you've got the foundations. Before you even need to know pharmacy, you need to know some basic science and math and terminology foundations. Okay, then they suggest you kind of work through a study plan. Then they suggest that you work on clinical and math chapters. And I'm going to say, in reality, they really want you to do a lot of math on the front end. Do the calculations, the biostats, and know your brand generics. Those are kind of after you've got the basics down, those are the cores. Pharmacy calculations, biostats, and brand generic. And another reason I think I'm going to say it that way is because those are heavily represented across the whole dang test. So every test you take is going to have an over-representation of calculations, biostats, and you won't be able to do a whole bunch of problems if you don't know your branch generic. So if you don't have that, it's kind of, I'll call level 1 foundation, basic math skills, unit analysis, terminology. You should have that already before coming in, but if you don't, let's get you some help. Level 2, foundations for the actual NAPLEX, which is calculations, and there's a whole bunch of different subkinds of calculation. Calculations, biostats, brand generic. Knowing both the brand generic and what the drugs are for. If you know what the drug class is and what it's for, you're a pretty darn good guesser, even if you haven't studied that particular drug in great detail. So knowing indication and brand generic, that's pretty useful. After you do that, then you can kind of move on to your clinical topics. That's when you kind of make sure you're up to date on the drugs and the goals for diabetes, for hypertension, for HIV, for cancer, for everything else. So, and those are all broken down into chapters. And exactly the question that people were asking before, how should I work it? Should I watch the video? Should I read the chapter? Should I do the practice problems? I think the minimum is you skim the chapter and then you can decide, am I ready to take that test? If I feel confident, I've kind of refreshed on the drugs, I'm confident on the disease state, I'm going to go take the module bank and see if I'm as good as I think I am. If you don't get an 80, you're probably not as good as you think you are. You probably need to go back. That's where you can put the hearts on those questions and go study again. Can't do it. I'm teaching right now, honey. I'll help you later. Okay, boy came in. Sorry. So where was I? Oh, so 80%. So at minimum, you should be skimming the chapter with a focus on the drugs. I agree with Armin as a bare minimum. And then try the practice problems. And if you're getting 80s on those practice tests, that's good. And if you're getting 40s, start over. Go back, study the book. If you need a second version, watch the video. And I think a lot of people have found the video to be helpful. So it's kind of hit and miss who likes them and who doesn't. But I've had just as many people raise their hand and tell me I couldn't have done it without the videos as I've had people saying, yeah, I just tore the book into pieces and I read one chapter at a time. And some people, like if Alan comes and talks to you guys, he's going to say, I wrote condensed notes on the front page. Everything about the chapter I need to know, I made it fit on the top half of the front page of the chapter. And then I only went back into the chapter if I got lost past that point. So each person's a little different past that. But you can't get by without focusing on the drugs in the chapter and having an understanding of the disease state and then jumping into those module banks. You can't know where you're at. You can't really know that chapter until you do those module banks. So you have to plan self-testing into your plan. Okay. So I'm just going to skim through. This is the long version. If you want to follow a stepwise plan, this actually has it. I'm going to say another thing. Maybe you think, well, that was Alan. Alan's the smart guy from the class. He didn't need to study, right? Well, I'll say it in another way. Everybody from the class of 2020, sooner or later, I'm going to say it that way, everybody, sooner or later, got to a 70 or 80% on all their testing. All of them did. It just turned out to be who did it first and who did it last. Who had to not graduate on time and who did. That's kind of how it goes. So if you put a good plan together and you start early, you can be ahead of the game and you can be scoring 70s and 80s. No sweat. No sweat. Everybody in the class. Doesn't matter if you're top or bottom. Everybody can get there. I know it because I've watched it happen over and over again. But you got to put the work in. And if you don't start soon enough, I can't bring the time back. We're just going to have to lag you over, or you won't get an early enough start. We can't actually help you enough, and then capstone's over. So that's kind of where things end up. But anyways, here they talk about there's no such thing as luck. It's about knowing about drugs and doing the work and having the ability to make decisions. So if it's calculation, can I read the calculation problem and know how to set the problem up and work it efficiently, get it right, reliably, and work it in enough time that I don't waste the rest of my test time because of a few calculation problems. Then you got this big book of materials. Now what do? They tell you to take this assessment. They've got drug basics and terminology. It's very low level. If you don't pass that, get some help. And chapters 1 in the book can help you with that, but maybe you need to talk to us. Rosemary and I can help you too, if that's where you're getting stuck. They also have a free math assessment. So all that's in your dashboard. It's recommended. I think it's a good foundation of where you can start. But if you've already been practicing modules and you've been, like I gave a lot of people an option to take a 42-question test a month ago. If you took that and you compared your scores and you're doing great on it, then maybe you can skip the first step. But if you're not sure where to start on the self-assessment test. You got to do a study plan. This is one of the more important tables in this review system. See that estimated topic completion time, green, yellow, red. Green means quick topics. You can knock this out in probably 1-2 hour study session in the evening. What about yellow topics? A little longer. You might need a couple of study sessions. Or you might need a half day. You might have to put a half of a Saturday together to knock out a yellow topic. What about the red topics? Those are big topics. You're going to spend most of the evenings this week working on them, or you might have to dedicate a whole weekend day, like all of Saturday, like wake up at 8 or 9 and get to work and work till 4 or 5. That's the kind of time a red topic often takes. Now, it could be you're already a rock star on HIV because you learned it really well in school, and it's just a quick refresh, and it breaks the rules. You don't have to review it that long. But if you're kind of squishy on that topic, these color codes are about right. If you feel like, geez, I haven't thought about asthma in a while, I think there's something about inhalers, but I can't quite remember which one, and I definitely can't convert one steroid to another by potency. It's time to put some time to the side and learn the asthma topic. And the nice thing, though, is now this gives you some calibration. I'm going to show you right after I'm done with this, I'm going to switch over to the calculator that we built. And that calculator will use these estimates to help you plan your year if you want to use it. Okay. Notice that after you kind of build a study plan, one of the first things you want to do is start working through the clinical and math sections. In this section, they're talking about 70 being a self-assessment standard. I think as a self-assessment, if you're at home and not on a heavy time pressure, you probably really want to be at 80 when you do your home modules. When you do a test with us and it's under time pressure, maybe that's okay to have a 70 in that range. But when you're home and the time's not a time issue and you're just doing modules as you go, you should be really getting to the point you're at 80 or 90 or 100% on those self-study modules. They talk about if you goof and you have a whole bunch of problems that you can't do, you can mark them. They also talk about you should probably start making flashcards of stuff that you need to remember. What will happen is you'll study diabetes for this week, and by next week you'll start to forget it again. So you'll need something, like I said, it's one of your jobs as you're working the modules and as you're working the chapters is to condense it down to what you need to study as you get closer. There's a phase right now where you're going to be calibrating, like, what does a steady day look like for me? How am I going to put the time in? What methods work for me? I'm going to call that self-calibration to studying. If you wait, you'll have to do that in the spring, and it'll be very messy. But if you do it now, you'll be like, okay, I think I learned how to teach myself any topic in this book, and I know what resources I have, and okay, I use ARCSprep for these ones, and I use the APHA review book for that one, and I get a tutor for this one, and I read the guideline for that one. You'll have your study plan for the year, and you'll have a way that you learn. And I use study cards to remind myself. I use flashcards to learn drugs. And exactly what Karen was asking, as you talk to other people, they're going to do it differently. Listen and see if you want to try it. If you don't do it their way. If you want to, give it a try and give it a time limit to try it on. I'm going to try it on these 2 topics. If it works, I'm going to keep doing it. If it doesn't, I'm going to change. Because what we don't want you to do is wasting your time. You're too busy. Okay? So this is their tip on, okay, when you miss a question, kind of build it into an index card and save that for later, and you can use it as a quick refresh. If you're Alan and you were using his method, you'd write it on the front cover of the chapter so that you had a quick reference that I got to remember what this drug is for because I didn't know and I kind of forgot. And that's my quick refresh. Whatever works for you. Index cards, I think, are perfectly fine, though, if that's what you want to do. You just have to be able to get back to it. So if you make the index card and never look at it again, probably not so great. But if you make the index card and then in a week you refresh all your index cards, you kind of go through them again. Now you're reinforcing. And reinforcement is the key to keeping it stuck in your brain for a longer period. If you read it once, it's gone. If you read it once and test it once, it's okay, but it might go again. If you read it, test it again, and then put the hardest stuff on an index card, you've got that now for a long term. Okay. They talk a little bit about how to do the math. They want you to kind of work your way through the chapters. Here they talk about doing math kind of every day. So even after you're done with your math primer that you should do at the beginning, you should probably do some math every day. Because, listen, we just put you guys through the CPK course, right? That had math all over it. That had calculations. But math is a skill, pharmacy math is a skill that will fade if you don't keep coming back to it. So you got to keep doing the math. And because it's overrepresented on the test, you're going to get payoff if you do that. If your math is super fast and super solid, the rest of the test is a lot easier because you can slow down and think about stuff. You're not in a rush. You'll finish, which is another thing we haven't talked about, but people get under time pressure. They get anxious. They don't always finish the test. So that's another reason to get the math down. Get it fast, get it good. It'll be like free points on the test and give you more time than other people have. And then after that, you do a whole bunch of practice testing. And we're lining that up for you. We're going to give you at least 3 or 4 tests as we go through the year to kind of get to show that you're ready. And that's going to be kind of the big idea is periodically maybe every 2 blocks or so, we're going to give you a test and give you a chance to show off what you've learned. And you don't have to be perfect on the first test or the second one, but you better not wait till the end. You better not wait till May to start getting serious because you're going to put a lot of risk. That's the person who we kind of left behind in that mountain climb that we talked about earlier. And it's a big risk for you and for the program. It's not a good idea. So then the last bit is to prep the last couple of weeks before your test. I'm going to come back to that with you guys later. We're not there yet. We got so much work to do between now and then. But there is an idea about you don't just keep doing the same thing up to the exam. In the range of 2 or 3 weeks before the exam, you switch gears and you start doing things differently. So be ready for that. Questions about this study guide? Again, it's called How to Ace Your Exams. You can Google it or you can find it through the ARCS Prep. It's How to Ace Your Exams. It's a pretty good guide. I would start there and then you can start asking other people how they study. Because a lot of people did not pay attention to this guide because it's something that was online and I didn't spend as much time on it in previous years, but I've shown it to a lot of people in small group or one-on-ones. And sometimes it's the thing that turns them around. They're like, oh, I'm really supposed to do the practice problems and then use that to tell me if I need to go back and study some more? Yeah, that's what you're supposed to do. And if you aren't getting 80s, really, maybe 70s, but really 80s when you're not under time pressure, you should go back and do the topic again. Not everybody paid attention there. Okay. Stop sharing this. Questions? I'll leave a little moment while I get this next thing. Any questions about that? Okay, I think people get it. Okay, next slide. Okay, people see this Excel sheet. All right? See it, Rosemary?
Yes.
Okay, so what is this? This is all of those green, orange, and red topics. Remember those from that self-study cheat sheet? And notice that we marked it as 1 weeknight for the first pass, and 2 weeknights for the second pass, and 4 weeknights for a full weekend day for the red topics. Notice that we created every topic in the list, and then how long we think it'll take for the first pass, maybe around 2 hours, and about how long it might take for the second pass, maybe a little faster. Now, if you're already a pro at Alzheimer's, maybe it only takes you an hour to make sure you're good, or you skip it altogether because you don't need it right now. It's your strong area. So what we suggest that you do is and I believe this sheet is in the board prep course. Is that right, Rosemary? I think it's.
Yes, it is. Yeah, and this was also emailed to you guys.
Yeah. So you've got it in your inbox and you got it in your board prep. What we did, and it's just randomly filled out now, but we said, okay, when should I study my top 200 calculations? Well, we said probably block 1, which we're already kind of in. So you're going to fill this out to be whatever you need it to be. If you change the things in yellow, so if I change this to, let's say, block 6, this blue calculator updates. So if I said, okay, let's say I'm going to just push all this stuff to block 2. I'm now going to make all of my biostats, top 200 calculations. I'm going to do first and second pass in block 2. Well, then you can see how much work you've given yourself in block 2. Well, you've given yourself 5 green topics, 8.5 orange, and 8 red. You would have to spend about 18 hours a week doing RX prep to keep up with that, using their estimates of time. Now, maybe that's fine. Maybe you're going to do every evening and both weekend days. Maybe that's not fine. Maybe this is your inpatient rotation and you are rocked and you're only going to be able to put a half day in a week, this particular API block, and you're going to catch up later. That's fine. Just you can use this to kind of load balance topics. You can also say, boy, I don't have anything in block 1. Maybe I should have put some stuff there. Maybe it's too late, so it's too late. We can't do anymore. Maybe you're like, oh, my block 6 is an off block. So I should use it for self-study. I should load more content. So what you do is you only change the things in yellow. You change the block you're going to study a certain topic. You put your first and second pass because it's usually not enough to do it once. And then you come over here and you try to estimate how much work that's going to be. And it could be you leave some things off because you already know them really well. That's fine too. And then the last thing we suggested is you put in your API rotation list in, and then you use the API rotation list as a way of saying, well, I'm going to have hospital in block 3, so maybe I want to study hospital stuff either in block 2 or block 3. Because why not get a 2-for-1? If you're already going to have to study to be ready for the hospital, you might as well study and be ready for the hospital and do board prep. Just don't do it at the hospital. Do it at home. So if you want to, you can put some of your topics in block 2. You're like, well, I'm going to do these 3 topics in block 2, and then I'm going to do the rest in block 3 because I'm going to do my hospital rotation then. Or maybe I'm going to do that hospital stuff for the acute care rotation. Whatever you want to do. But you can put in your rotation list and use that to say, geez, it's probably not a great idea to have such a heavy load during acute care. Oh, but community, I'm a pro at community. I've been doing community as a tech for 10 years, and then I did community past that. I know community. Sure, I can definitely study 18 hours on top a week on top of community because I'm going to rock community, and they're not going to ask a lot from me after hours. Maybe that's what happens. I don't know. But you guys load balance for yourself. That's what this you're supposed to do. If you forgot everything that I just said, it's written, roughly speaking, in the margins here. So it says it at the top, the tips, and it says the tips over here about one thing. Anybody have questions about this calculator? It is quite useful to make sure that you don't overload yourself and that you align your self-study with your API rotations. Those who do that get a check. Yeah, someone has a question. Someone have a question? Okay, maybe that was accidental. Feel free to be brave if you have questions about this. Just notice a rough estimate. If you really did need a first and second pass for all topics, notice that it's around 10 hours a week, ballpark. Some of your study should come during breaks, like you're given a week here and 2 weeks there for break. Of course, you need a break. But don't just sit down and watch Netflix for the week. You should be prepping for your next API anyways. You might as well knock out some topics, and that'll lighten your load on later periods. The other thing is that you might not want to be done at block 8. You might want to be closer to done at block 6, because, right, you want to be done in March with a lot of your study. So maybe you don't do any second pass until you come back after March. Whatever works for you is fine. But don't wait to get started, is all I can say. And you can use this tool as a way to help you understand the rough time it's going to take when you build your calendar. This in itself is not a calendar, but it is a topic list, and it does weigh the weight. So oncology is a bigger topic than gout, and everybody knows that already. But it's in this system to help you estimate. Okay, I'm done with that.
Dr. Offset, I have a question.
Yes.
Okay, so what if you are going to be starting a rotation and you're not sure exactly which topics you should prepare yourself for? Reach out to you guys and maybe ask what we should focus on or experiential.
That's a great question. There's different ways. You could ask the student who you knew already took that rotation at that site. That's one way to find out. Because if Rosemary just took that rotation with that preceptor, guess what that's going to happen with me when I get there? It's the same rotation. So they're like, you better brush up on your gout. Oh, you're going to Dr. Ofsted's AmCare clinic. You better brush up on your diabetes, your hypertension, your lipids, because he's going to grill you on that. Well, now you got your topic list. Another way you can find out, but you better know what, better do it in a way that's okay with experiential ed. But you can generally email your preceptors and say, hey, I'm excited to be coming to your rotation next week. I wanted to do a little preparation before I get there. These were the topics I was thinking about. Are these the topics you think I should self-study? And they were like, yeah, those are good. Or no, do this one, and I want you to read this guideline. And then you can just go do what they ask you. But if you have an open line of communication before you show up at the site, you will have a much better rotation. I'll just say as my own life experience and many residents and students I've worked with in the past, the biggest way to screw up is to not have open communication. And then you get into the site and you don't know what's expected of you. And then they start to expect things that you didn't know. And then they start saying, well, this student just doesn't care. They're not trying. You're like, no, I just don't know what you want. But you can't say that. So what you can do to get around all that is you can have a conversation and you can reach out and say, I'm excited. I've heard great things. I want to be there. I want to get ready. Do you have any suggestions? Here's what I was thinking about. Am I on track? Something like that. And then when you get there, it's great to have a calendar that you build within the first few days of what your plan is for the rest of the 6 weeks. Just like you calendarize your study, you want to calendarize your experience. Like, oh, I'm going to do a lot of this on week 1 and more of this on week 2. I'm going to work with this other kind of secondary preceptor. All of that is very useful. None of that happens unless you have a conversation. If you leave it to the preceptors, they're sometimes too busy to initiate. So it's good if you can. But I think experiential ed has rules about when it's appropriate and not appropriate to reach out. So just make sure before you reach out, you kind of you follow their good process. But there's definitely an opportunity to reach out. You just have to follow the time frames. I think they have time frames on when it's okay. And you're not supposed to reach out to the rotation and say, can you add me? I'm just making that clear too. You can't say, can you add me to your rotation, Dr. Hofstad? You're not supposed to do that. But you can reach out and say, I'm scheduled to start next week. But experiential education will clarify. Have they already told you the rules for that? I think they usually do an orientation.
Yeah, so they said to reach out a couple weeks before to find out what the schedule would be, tired, and things like that. So I think we are able to do that as long as the COVID restrictions were able to.
Yeah. So a couple of weeks in advance, you can definitely include what you want to study, self-study to get ready. That's really smart. It makes you look stronger anyways. You want them thinking before you get there, that's the student I want. As soon as they think, that is a student I have to take, you're going to have a bad rotation. If they think, that's a student I want here, as soon as they say that, you're going to have an excellent rotation. It comes down to that so often. So do the work it takes to build the communication line. And then when you get there, you can have 2 or 3 objectives that maybe aren't on the syllabus, but you're like, I know I'm in an acute care. I heard that sometimes students get an opportunity to watch a surgery or something. I'm excited about that. If that's an option, I'd love to be part of it. I'm open to other ideas too. That's the kind of stuff that gets the preceptor primed, because now they're like, this person wants to be here. And if you've self-studied, you sound smart when you get there because you didn't have to be quizzed on the basics, because you already did the prep of the basics. Now they can teach you the higher level stuff within the first week or 2. They're much happier preceptors. You'll have a much better time. They won't beat you up so much when you're there too, so you'll have a better time too. So hopefully that kind of blends. That wasn't your exact question, but that blends a really common issue that I wanted to make sure everybody was on the same page about. Communicate with your preceptor. So you can ask previous students, you can communicate with your preceptor, you can try to guess or ask Ofsted or ask Armin. We can kind of guess generally by the rotation type. Like, okay, hospitals usually need these topics. But you never quite know until you're on the service. So somebody who's been on that service before is probably the best person. Because my M-Care clinic may be different than Dr. Snowden's M-Care clinic. Be the same, may not be. Maybe he sees a lot of osteoporosis and I don't. So maybe he says, you know what, it'd be good in addition to diabetes, you better learn some osteoporosis. And if you don't ask, they'll quiz you without you realizing it. And then think, the student is behind. They're not ready. You don't want them thinking that. Did that answer it? I kind of went long-winded. Sorry. Any follow-up?
Those were some great suggestions. Thank you.
Yeah. How about anybody else? Okay. I counted to 10. Nobody said anything. So I think it's okay to go. Okay. I'm going to stop sharing. So we did the calendar. We did the kind of the mindset stuff and strategies. Armin showed you a little bit of the modules, so I'm going to punt a little bit on that. Maybe we'll come back to that. Let me show you the PCOA. So you guys in the spring semester By accreditation mandate, so it's not even the CHSU requirement, it's everybody's requirement. So every student across the country who's a pharmacy student in their third year takes the PCOA. Share the sample. Hold on. Sorry, I'm kind of slow clicking here. Back to the PowerPoint. That. Oh, okay. Right before PCOA, I'm going to say expectations. So it is expected that you come to the morning and afternoon sessions every scheduled date in that calendar that we sent through your API calendar. If you don't, for any reason, you have to do makeup. For any reason. That makeup will be harder than showing up. But you are human beings, and sometimes things happen. We are in COVID period. Now more things happen. We understand. What we want to make sure is that you stay on track. We want to make sure that nobody tries to stay under the radar. We want to make sure that people who need help get it, even if they don't ask for it right away. So at a high level, and I don't know if you talked to last year's students or not, some of them were making a habit about showing up in the morning and slipping out in the afternoon. We're going to be all over that this year. So don't try to test us on that. If you do need an absence, follow the high stakes absence process if there's a testing day. If it's a review day, you have to do a regular notify us that you're going to miss the review day. We may require you to do things to kind of remediate that experience. If it's recorded, I may ask you to, but it can't be for no reason. You shouldn't be missing anything. You shouldn't be working on Fridays when we have our meeting dates. If you choose to meet it, if you choose to work at that time, then you risk not passing the course that we're doing. So it's not a good idea. On the other hand, if you're sick, if your kids are sick, if your car is broken, if your internet is broken, just be a professional and let us know and follow good process. An email to me and Rosemary would be nice. If you're missing one of the big testing dates, you have to CC this COP high stakes absence. The high stakes absence policy is in the university catalog. It is stringent. You have to have high elements of evidence. But we know that that's hard to get if somebody has COVID right now, coronavirus. So we will listen to you and listen to what you have to say. So be a professional, notify us. If you're going to miss a test, a big one, like today's test, like next time we meet, there's going to be a big test, you have to submit a high stakes absence request if you're going to miss those days. And go read the university catalog. It's got 5 elements to the high stakes absence. Things like unavoidable, prompt notification. Like if you tell us a week after you missed it, unless you were dying in the hospital, that's too late. But if you're like, okay, car broke down, as soon as I got back in cell range, put a message in, then we're going to give you credit for best efforts. So that counts. We're not trying to make your life miserable, but we need people to take this seriously. I will also say the president of the university, the dean of the college, the associate deans of the college are all reviewing every step we take together. So anything you do will be under the microscope. So take this as seriously as you can because everybody wants success and they're all going to be thinking about ways to help and they're all going to be thinking about ways for people who aren't taking it seriously to intervene. I don't want to go there with anybody. So we just need to be on the same page. So expectations. Come to the Friday sessions we require. Stay the whole day. Don't make extra plans. If you're going to miss a testing date, if you're going to miss any day, let us know as early as you can with Rosemary and me. Rosemary primarily, I'm kind of a CC on that stuff. If you're going to miss the testing day, add in the COP high stakes absence. Okay. So I had to sidestep a call. I had to make that, I'm just trying to make that as clear as possible. Okay. So back to PCOA. Okay, so what is this? In a short order of time, we're going to email you your individualized PCOA performance. And what are you going to see? You're going to see 5 rows of data with little bars next to them. So what do these bars and numbers mean? So the leftmost score in the sheet is called your scaled score. That is, roughly speaking, your performance score. What does that mean in terms of what percentage I got on the test? I'll tell you, in reality, nothing. Instead, it's like a bell curve score. It's a normalized score. It's a scaled score, meaning it gives you reference to where you are compared to everybody else who took the test nationally. So, in reality, the next column is probably the better score to think about. Percentile rank for program year. So with this score, that's where you are as a percentile rank. So if you're at 8%, look at the biomedical sciences, 8%. If that's you, that means 92% of the people nationally on those question types scored better than you, and you scored better than about 8% of other people. So you're at the 8th percentile. Versus, what about clinical sciences? Oh, you're pretty good in that one. You scored better than 58% of people out there, and about 42% of people scored better than you. What does that mean on the right? On the right are the color bars. The red bar is the national average in that category, and then the blue bar is your score. And then there's an error bar, because if you retook this test 100 times, that's the range of scores you might get. Because every time you take the test, your score moves a little bit. So the error bars are probably, they're not huge. So if your error bar crosses the red bar, you're probably okay. So looking at this, I'd say this particular student needs to do some work on their biomedical sciences. They're weak. They're close on their pharmaceutical sciences. And I bet you if they worked on their biomedical, their pharmaceutical would get better, because they're tied a little bit, right? If you don't know anatomy and physiology, the pharmaceutics gets a little harder. Like the pharmacology sometimes is confusing. But they're pretty strong, actually. They're pretty strong in clinical and social administrative behaviorals. So clinical sciences is basically the patient care series. Social administrative sciences is pretty much all of Dr. Douglas's coursework and the law stuff that you guys did. Pharmaceutical sciences is mostly the PDA courses. And the basic biomedical sciences is a mix of your prereqs and some of your first year, like immunology lives in that bucket. There is a second page, which I did not include a screenshot of. The second page gives you subsection scores. So it'll say under biomedical sciences, it'll say, oh, your biochem is this good, and your immunology is this good. The problem with that is those don't come with error bars, and so they're not extremely reliable. So instead of reviewing them and saying, definitely I need to work on my biochem because I got a low score, sometimes there's only 2 questions in a category. There might be only 1 question on, I don't know, whatever the topic, but whatever in there. Sometimes there's only 1 or 2 questions on the whole dang test about a subject. If you miss it, it's going to say you got a 0 in the subsection. Well, that has no meaning. So I would use these blue bars or percentile rank to get a sense on where you are. One reason to do this is to see where you're at after taking 3 years of curriculum. And some people got really high scores, and some people got really low scores. And some people got in the middle scores. The reality is these scores don't have a particular meaning in terms of your progression. They don't. So you could have gotten 0s down the list, and you're still here in P4. It does 2 things, though, in different contexts. One is if the whole program has poor PCOA scores, if the whole program has poor PCOA scores, then when the accreditors come, like they're coming next week, we have to create a plan to improve them. So that plan then impacts the next generation of students and sometimes your class too. Sometimes we have to do things to remediate your class. The second issue is the PCOA is not a perfect predictor, but it is a partial predictor of your NAPLEX scores. Particularly if you look at your Domain 2 and Domain 4 scores. If you look at the pharmaceutical sciences and the clinical sciences, those areas are overrepresented on the NAPLEX. So if you're stronger in those areas, you tend to do better on the NAPLEX. Again, there's a lot of work between PCOA and NAPLEX. Nobody gets there without any work. But it may tell you how much of a hole you're in terms of starting point. Look at pharmaceutical sciences and clinical sciences. And if those are way weaker than national average, I would definitely get serious about adding extra time to your study schedule for NAPLEX review. You're going to have a longer road than other people. It's going to be harder for you. You're going to have to ask for help more. If your scores are a little higher, then maybe that's when you can say, I'm feeling confident, I'm going to skip a couple of these topics and get right down to business on the topics I know I need to spend more time on. So again, this is a tool for you. You're going to get it in email. I will not be calling you to talk to you about your PCOA results, but if you'd like to talk to me about your PCOA results, I'm happy to. Questions about PCOA? Questions about absences too, since I didn't give time after that. So it's a way to calibrate. I would, as you think about your year-long study plan, you can use PCOA as a rough draft on where you might have some strengths and weaknesses, where you might need to start first. Okay. That's that. Okay. So we've discussed PCOA scores. We talked about the longitudinal calendar. Armin showed you in RX Prep where you can put dates on study review topics, which is nice because it'll get you, once you do that, in your dashboard, you've got a self-study schedule. You'll just keep clicking on the next topic once you build it. You've got the calculator in Excel that lets you figure out how much load you're taking on each block. We talked a lot about how calculations, biostats, grand generic need to come first. It's very likely we're going to have a heavy emphasis on what it takes to pass the board competency course. So you want to, if you haven't started anywhere, I would start on chapters 9 through 15 in the RX Prep book, which are the calculation series and the biostats, and then supplement with the brand generic series. Make sure you're solid in that stuff. And then we're probably on good track. Talking it out with other people, getting tips and tricks. Those are all good. Rosemary, did you find any of those tips and tricks that Alan and Yuchin shared from the... Okay. What we'll do then, we're going to ask them for a copy of their slides because they built it. Maybe we just haven't posted it yet. They built it. We'll get them to kind of bring some of their tips forward. And if you want, we could even have them come join us the next time. And I'm happy to also have an open discussion where people tell about what tips they've heard. And maybe Rosemary and I can comment. Maybe Alan Yuchin could be in the room with Armin. And if we heard a tip, somebody said, oh, just light your RX Prep book on fire and forget it. And don't study until the end. We'll say, sure, feel free to do that. But there's huge consequences, right? But if they're saying, no, this is what I did. I bound it. I highlighted it. I folded it. I only read these sections of it. I wrote in pencil, whatever they say. I studied this many blocks a week in the module. I studied this many modules a week. I didn't just study RX Prep. I went to Pass NAPLEX Now. All that stuff that people do. We can put it on the table and let people talk it out and use that. Is that something that the group would like for next time? Or do you want just an email with some slides that Alan Yuchin and Armin put together? What's kind of more valuable?
So are we meeting the next time in July?
Yeah, our next date is July 31st.
So I personally would like it sooner than that because I'm off on my next block.
Okay.
Steady. So.
You guys want to have an evening session or a weekend session? What's your preference? I'm willing to do it any way you want. You just have to tell me what you want. Why don't you work through your class president? Then you can feed requests in. But the item on the table is this. There's a request to kind of go through what are different study styles that people take. Nobody wants to wait, or at least there's an argument that waiting till July is too long, especially the end of July. Can we get something done sooner? And I'll say it's not going to come next week because next week is ACP visit. But maybe the week after or so, we could put something together. So if people want that, they have to tell us. And if it's going to be a big class, we'll get a Zoom meeting going or a WebEx meeting going, do something like that. If it's just one or two people, we'll just do like a little virtual roundtable. Okay, so work with your class president. Sorry, Karen.
Dr. Ofsted, if I can, I'll send out a poll and I'll see what the class wants. I have a feeling that a lot of people are still going to want something emailed out early, but I'm sure there's probably students that would also might want to meet with you. So I'll just send out a poll and see what I get out of it.
Okay, thank you, Karen.
Yeah.
Okay. So I'm going to flip order here. I'm going to let you ask any other questions you want. Then I'm going to give you a homework assignment. I'm going to also warn you about this homework assignment. Rosemary and I can see in the system if you do it. So the homework assignment I'm going to tell you about briefly is I want you to go into the ARCS prep modules, and I want you to do the calculations 1 module by this time next week. It should take you an hour, maybe 2. Actually, it's a yellow topic, so in theory it takes you 2 hours. I want you to go in and I want you to read the I think it's chapter 9. Read the chapter 9 in the book and do the module, all the questions in the module, and see how you do. And use that as a starting point if you haven't done it. Maybe you've already done that and you're done with your homework. But that is an early activity you should be doing. And so we're going to look to see if you do your homework. And that's going to be a good sign for me if you guys want to launch fast or if you want to drag your feet. So I hope that you listen and do your homework. So again, it's chapter 9. It's calculations module 1 in the ARCS Prep dashboard. And it's due this same time next week. I won't be calling you at home if you forget, but I'll know you didn't do it. And then I'll use that to gauge if we're going to lock down the system or if we're going to have a high trust system. That's what I'm going to use it for. So I hope we can be a high trust class and just know that we're going to get the work done. And it should only take 2 hours. So I would recommend you do it today because I'm going to let you out early. Okay. I'd like to reserve the remaining few minutes for Q&A.
If our next session is going to be virtual or live or in person yet?
Almost for sure virtual. Almost for sure. So just plan on it being virtual. And if we are told otherwise by the university president, then we will do it differently. But it's going to be a heavy testing day. So try to find a place you can test all day. It won't just be sit back and listen. So if you've got kids running around the house or whatever's going on, try to have somebody come in and watch your kids because you're going to need to test all morning and probably some in the afternoon too. We're going to do a heavy testing day. And we're going to test on calculations, biostats, brand generic, under a microscope. So if you wanted to know what to prep on, prep those topics. Biostats, calculations, brand generic. So the top sellers is what it's called. It's called top sellers in the ARCS prep. And there's multiple sections, some just matching brand generic, and some matching indication. It's all fair game. But if you're solid in those, you will be much better off when you go to do the rest of the work.
Dr. Offset, how many questions will be on the next test? Because it's the pre-test NAPLEX, correct?
Yeah, it's being built. So that could easily be 100 or 150 just for the morning. And then there could be another 100 questions or 150 in the afternoon that are under the microscope focus questions on calculations, biostats, brand generic.
And you're pulling these questions from the RX Prep Bank?
Most likely.
Okay.
Yes. Yeah. But not the ones you can see.
Right.
We have a moderator bank,
mm-hmm.
and they update it every year. So they're all new questions, John. But they're similar to the ones in your module banks. So if you do your module banks and are rocking it, the only difference between that and when you come test with us is timing. So generally speaking, just so you know, each question on the NAPLEX gives you about a minute and a half, 90 seconds. It's not that they make you go on, but if you use 3 minutes for one question, that means the next question doesn't get a minute and a half anymore. So on average, you need to be at a minute and a half. That includes calculations. That's the tricky part. So if you're not fast at calculations, you can bog down and spend 5 minutes a problem. You'll wipe out many questions at the end of the test. And you won't finish on time often. And you'll have a score that reflects somebody who got 80% of the test done. Now, what score can you really get if you already missed 20% because you just didn't get to them? Even Alan didn't do all the questions on the test. I asked him point blank. He's like, I got close, Dr. Hofstad. I ran out of time. And he had studied like heck for that thing. So there's time pressure, and it's a long test. It's 6 hours of testing. There's breaks, but there's 6 hours of testing. So it's a big test. So you got to be efficient. You got to have endurance. You got to know a lot of what you know cold. Like that's why brand generic calculations have to be cold. Biostats has to be cold. You got to know it cold. You can't fumble around with those questions. Other questions from the room? Other questions?
Okay, I do apologize. Which one were you talking about for the calculations coverage?
Can you do the calculations 1, which is, I think, chapter 1 in the book? Yeah, just number 1. Okay. Yep. You can do more. So we're gonna pull the results for Calc 1 module, see who did them and who didn't.
Okay.
And see who worked until they got 80s, and see who didn't. That's it. We're just gonna
posted in. Sorry, Dr. Ofted. Karen just posted in the chat for you guys. Chapter 9 starts on page 116 in the book. So chapter 9 is where you're going to find that module 1.
Okay. Questions, comments, concerns, joy, sadness, happiness, fatigue. We're all having all of those mixed emotions at the same time. I am sometimes too. Can I help anybody with anything? I know I've kind of had to be the heavy. I've told you a lot about a lot of different stuff today, and I want to put clear expectations out so that you know that we're getting serious and we want you to be successful. But I also want you to hear the message that we want to help you. And we don't want you to feel like you're doing this alone, because your team's with you. Your teammates, your classmates are with you, and we're with you too. And you got support of the college. The college wants you to be successful too. But you got to do the work. It doesn't come for free. But like Armin said, a big picture vision of past, okay, we're super focused on the boards. The big picture past all this is the more ready you are for APPEs, the better your APPEs go. The more you learn on APPEs, the stronger you're going to be later. The more that you prep now, when you go out and practice, the stronger you'll be when you have real patients, taking care of real people. The better you'll be when mom and dad ask you a question about their health. The better you'll be when somebody relies on you to make the right decision for them. So this is worth the work. It really pays off later. And I'll tell you, because like I said at the beginning of the presentation, this is your first mountain. I mean, you've been through many mountains already. This is another mountain, another big one though. It's a big one, I'll admit it. But there's others that come after this that also are mountains that you climb. So having grit and toughness and organization and planning, resilience, and asking for help, working with others, these are all things that are going to get you to the finish line every time. So I'll just say it again. We're here to help you. And if I can help you, you just got to let me know. But I can't help you if you don't ask. Well, I can. I'll go look. But I can't help you enough if you don't ask.
Oh, I put something in the chat. I just said that you can download the RX Prep app on your phone and you can view the videos and quizzes. So if like you don't have time to be taking your laptop or whatnot, you can do it on the go.
That's an amazing tip. I did not know they had an app. No one has said that to me before, Karen. That's amazing. So everybody knew but me, I'm sure. But okay, so you can do can you do the quizzes you said? You can do the quizzes and the videos?
Yeah.
Oh.
So when we get the 2021 version, I don't know if we have to update it or not, or if it updates on its own.
Yeah, what happens kind of around September is the entire question bank resets. And so there'll be a 2021 bank, just like you notice that you've logged in and it tells you, do you want to look at the 2020 bank of questions? You'll see it in the dashboard. You're in the 2020 bank when you do calculations module 1. There will be an updated set of questions and banks that show up around September. And I don't know how they're going to handle it this year. In previous years, I don't know if they let you see the old ones or not. But they're equivalent. So if you've already checked off, okay, I finished calculations 1 and I finished calculations 2, and I'm solid in those, you don't have to come back to them. Somebody said you can use it offline too. You can do the quizzes offline. The module, you can download the tests on the app and use it when you want to. Okay, that's a nice tip too. So that would be great instead of hauling your book around when you're like at lunch breaks and stuff, while you're waiting for the service to reset. If you don't have work to do for the service, you could do some quizzes on your phone or watch a video. Watching a video might be a nice thing to do over lunch break. That's a great idea. I'll tell you, you're going to have to carve out time. There's no free time in your happy year. So you're going to have to find time. And people around you are going to have to give you time. You got to ask for it and they have to give it. So family members have to leave you alone. You got to make time, you got to have exercise and health and all the things that matter too. And some family time, but you got to put time every weekend, whether it's evenings, weekends.
Can I get that in writing, please?
Yeah. Yeah. They can run in the screenshot if you want. You want to bring the kids in?
No, they're downstairs.
Mine run in. You guys already saw that once. I'm like, go away, I'm teaching. Okay. Anything else I can help with? I have a lot of faith in your class. You guys have been a great class. I know you're going to make this happen. But prove it. That's trust but verify. Right? So prove it. But I trust you. You guys are going to do a good job. But now prove it. There's a question about COVID in the chat. Let's see. So, sounds like there's a line of frustration that some people are facing around COVID. So if you're having personal or there's collective issues around COVID, It's a little bit out of my scope to help with because I'm not managing how to support students with COVID, but I do know that Student Affairs has been very responsive. And so if you send an email to Macy and Jeremy and outline exactly what your concerns are, they've been trying to help. And they've elevated, I've been at the college administrative committee meetings with the dean, and they've raised issues there to try to help students on issues. So I don't know about the health department issue, which is the second part. I'm not sure what that question is asking. But I do know that we've, for example, we reset the building to follow California and county regulations. So like all day today I was at the building. Before I came home, I was at the building and we're wearing masks. We're socially distancing. We're getting the classroom set up in case people need to use them with social distancing. The list goes on. So we are trying to be ready for COVID. And there's a lot of things that the P1s through P3s are getting to help them get ready for teaching in the fall. You just can't see it yet because we're building it. Like all things, COVID was not part of the master plan. So, but there's work being done. So, but if you feel like you are not, I heard the text is saying we're not getting help with COVID. If that's how you feel, please reach out to Jeremy Hughes and Macy and say, hey, this is what my concerns are. And if you want to work with your class president, talk about it because it's an everybody thing, please do. Not trying to leave you behind. But I don't know what everybody's issues are, and they might be different for everybody. And it's also out of my scope because I'm helping you with arts prep and board prep. Unless it's a board prep question disguised, then ask it again and make it clear how I can help.
I think the question was meant is why we're not, like the Department of Experiential is not working with the health department to get us more hours, like for rotations.
Whole different line of question. So I do know that they're working very hard to get the sites to reopen. But I want everybody to know, and it's outside my scope, so I'm going to only give a sentence on it and then say experiential is your point. But it is not a fair statement to say that they're not working to get you guys out on your rotations. It's just difficult. And I'll say, and I'm sure they've said it, CHSU is not the only school in the country with this problem. It's a national problem. It's a statewide problem. Each practice site can decide when they will and won't take students, period. So that's terrible. They don't happen to work for us. The dean telling them to open doesn't make them open. So the shortest way I can say it is they are regularly talking to the practice sites, trying to get them to reopen so that you guys get what you need. We are also thinking about other ways to support you as faculty. So there's a working group trying to figure out how to supplement the P4 class with their practice experiences. So that's happening in the background. We just aren't ready to show and tell everything about it. So it's not that we aren't doing things. We just aren't ready to give it to you in a way that you know what the perfect plan is. So I know that's frustrating, but I sit in meetings on a regular basis where they're talking about how do we get the students out at their practice site? And how do we get the practice sites to take students? Some sites have opened for telemedicine, but not very many, meaning that you can remotely log in, talk to the patients remotely and other providers, but it's really hard to set up. Some sites have allowed students in with social distancing and masking, but not a lot yet of those either. So experiential, you can be confident though that experiential is working hard at it, and they're talking about it. And we're going to talk about it again next week because the accreditors are. So they're going to ask us, what's your COVID plan? We've got parts of it that are done and some of it that's in progress. And that's where the whole country is. That's a fair place to be right now. Erin, did I answer it enough?
Dr. Ofsted, I'm sorry if it came across wrong. I wasn't in an area where I could speak. This is Dolly. I was just asking that how could we help as students, in the crisis? Like, why are we not doing things to help our community and stuff. We're trained. We have some background in that. That was kind of my point. And how can we use that towards our rotation hours?
Yeah. So there's rules about what can and can't be rotation hours, and it's very strict and specific, and the accreditors have, and so it's kind of too complicated to have on this call. But there's two parts to your question. The one about how can I help the community is a different question than how do I get rotation hours. The way you get rotation hours, you have to work through experiential education. And if you have ideas, you can take it to them, but they may or may not be able to implement based on what's available and the timing. Realize to get a practice site, for example, takes months and months and months of preparation and contracting. It has to go through legal of both sides. It's a very complicated process. So as much as it seems like, oh, well, my uncle's the head of pharmacy at some place, can I just go work there? Well, you could if he wants to pay you, but then it can't be happy hours. And he could if you want to volunteer, but there's no affiliation agreement, so it can't be happy hours. So it's very complicated to turn on a new site. It seems like it should be simpler, but there's lots of legal issues and other regulatory issues from the accreditors. Because medicine and pharmacy are highly regulated bodies, it means that everything is a little bit more cumbersome to make change. Now is the time we would all like to make lots of change because we're in a position we need it. But there's only so much that can be done in a certain amount of time. But I will say that there are lots of innovations and creative options that have been thought about and are being worked on. So it's not that people aren't trying to get you guys into a good position. But if you ask a different question, how can I volunteer? I believe, and someone could correct me, but I think the state put together back in March a volunteer group for people who could serve as health providers for emergency response, in response to COVID. Did anybody hear about that back in like March? The governors put that together. Do you remember hearing about that? It's like the something volunteer.
I think it pertained to people that really retired within the last 5 years. If you were a nurse or a doctor, they could reinstate you with your license if it had expired. So it's more geared toward advanced practice.
Well, yes and no. You as a pharmacy intern can do anything a licensed pharmacist allows you to do when you're in there under their preceptor, as a precepted student. So you had the right, and you still do, to go work with a pharmacist in a volunteer capacity. Your license is valid in that setting. The danger is you got to make sure that you have the right insurance, and I think I remember reading something about that in the program. And you can't say you're doing it on behalf of CHSU because you're not. You're a person who's volunteering. But that could be a direction you go. I do know at one point some of the hospital systems were taking volunteers, but I looked like about a month and a half ago, and people can tell me if this is not true, but when I looked a couple of spots about a month and a half ago, most of them were turning away volunteers at that point. They weren't taking any new ones. Probably because it's too hard. It's just like they're trying to limit the amount of staff they have because they have to think about safety and other things. So it's probably the same reason it's hard to get the interns in.
Yeah, and they want you to be trained in swab testing and all that if you want to volunteer. Thank you. That was like really good information. I had asked the question to OEE. I just didn't get a good response. And then my second question was, I don't know if you guys have heard if they will be making any adjustments like ACPE as far as how many hours are required for students with, what's happened. Have you guys heard anything yet?
So the number of hours of APPEs that you need are in the university catalog. And that catalog, you've seen versions of it before. It's effectively the same. When you came into the program, you signed something called the enrollment agreement. And you can adjust things like the courses you take, but the number of hours you need to graduate is pretty much fixed. You can take electives and things past that, but it's kind of fixed. So you probably already know the number of hours of application from that enrollment. So it's approximately the same. Sometimes they do some adjustment. I'll say that there's potential for how to deliver the APPEs that is being considered to try to get everybody through. But the number of hours is a different question. And the number of hours is also set by the accreditors. I think it's 1,500 to get licensed in California. I believe it's, tell me if I'm wrong, Rosemary, is it 1,440? It might be 1,440 for the number of hours you need to graduate of any pharmacy school in the country.
I'm not sure. I think 1440 is about right, though.
Yeah. I'm doing it from memory, guys, so don't quote me. But
I think 6 blocks of 240 would be 1440. I was just wondering if you guys knew that anybody had made any adjustments as of yet, as far as, with everything that's happened.
Yeah,
I think or anything on that.
Here's the mindset I would take towards all this, because it's hard. The answer is I don't know. Logistical questions are very situational dependent, and even if I gave you an answer, guess what happens when COVID keeps changing? It changes again. So I listened to a talk from John Roberts, the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, and he was talking to, I think, his son's graduating high school class, and he had a couple of minutes of talk, and he kind of boiled it down to, he's like, okay, there's 3 big themes here. You're graduating in a time when there's uncertainty, when there's challenges we've never faced before. Not everyone knows what to do next. But there's 3 kind of guiding principles that'll make this work. First one, humility. The idea of humility is we are no longer in control of what's going to happen. I'm not in control. You're not in control. The dean's not in control. The governor is not in control. We influence it. We can be part of the process. We have to respond to it, but we don't get to dictate it. So I can't tell you exactly what's going to happen next. We can build contingencies, plan A, plan B, plan C. I'll tell you, I'm getting sick of making contingency plans. I've made a lot of them since March. We've made lots of them. We've had plan A, plan B, plan C for lots of things. But that's the humility you have to have. You can't control things like they used to be controlled. It used to be, listen, if we change it by more than 1% of what we did last year, that's a big change. We better go talk about it for a year. It's not like that now. People have to be adaptive. So the first is humility. The second, compassion. So it doesn't matter if you're sick or somebody else sick. People are suffering right now, regardless of if they have COVID. It's hard on everybody. And people are restless, they're upset, they're scared, they're thinking about the needs of other people, they're thinking about their own needs. So you just got to have compassion for everybody. And that's up and down the ladder. I have compassion for the dean, I'll tell you that. I have compassion for the president. I also have compassion for you guys. And I have compassion. I hope you have compassion for me. Because it's hard right now. And I think you just have to recognize everybody, it's hard. So we can either get tough with each other or we can help each other. And so that's kind of the third one, which is being courageous. So it's going to be hard, but we got to be brave. We got to do the right thing as much as we can. So even if it's hard to do, I got to take the better path. So that's my role in all this. Even if things get hard, I'm going to just get the punch in the nose, and then I'm going to get up again. I'm going to be brave. I'm going to do the next thing. If that means I got to go to campus and wear a mask so that I can make sure the classrooms are ready for the students in the fall, I'm going to do it. So that's just what we all got to do. So be courageous, have some compassion for everybody, even if they're not sick right now, because they're suffering, and have some humility, because we don't know what's going to happen. Nobody does. Doesn't matter. So that's me I got on a long-winded statement. But when you ask me, what's going to happen next with APPEs, I'm not sure. But I think I know how to handle it, which is I'm going to use those 3 principles and do the right thing as much as I can. And if you do the right thing, and I think going to experiential and saying, I want to help, what can I do? That is a lovely thing to say. If you go to experiential and say, I have demands, I don't know, probably won't work. Even if you got somebody to say yes, they may have to change it in a month. That's the thing. That's the thing right now. It's hard to make a permanent plan. So, anyways, I'm sorry if that was too long-winded. Did I answer your question, or would you like to ask it in a way that forces me to answer it more directly?
No, thank you. I appreciate it. I'm sorry if I came across different. I was just not in a place where I could like talk, so I had to type it quickly.
Yeah.
So much.
I understand and respect what you're going through, so I'm happy. If my kids came in and pulled the laptop off the table, which they've already done once, not today, but a different day, then you would all have to just bear with it. So I will bear with it too. Okay. Other questions? Are we on the same page? It's a little bit past 3, but it's not 4. We're done early. I would recommend you go put 45 minutes that I give you back right into the calculations module. And if you can knock it out today, finish it and be done. And don't knock it out. But if you get stuck, let us know and tell us before next Friday and we'll help you. If you realize you can't log into RxPrep or your book is missing chapter 5, whatever it is, we'll find out. You just got to tell us.
Dr. Offset, I just wanted to clarify before we log off. For the exam in July, is it going to be calculations, brand generic, biostats? Is there indication, and will there be other topics?
It'll have a large comprehensive component, which is the pretest, and then it'll most likely have a second series of focus tests that are topic specific, and the topics you named are the correct topics.
Okay.
The top seller series, which is it's like a package in the dashboard. Top sellers have a whole bunch of submodules. Be solid on that. Be solid on the biostats if you can. Be solid on the calculations. And calculations, I think, has 5 submodules. And the 5 submodules, I believe, align to the chapters. I'm sorry, I said chapter 5. I meant to say chapter 9. Did I say it wrong or right?
It's chapter 9.
Yeah, chapter 9, 10, 11. 9, 10, 11, 12, 13. Maybe it's 13 or 14. I can't remember anymore. It's maybe up to 13, and then is 14 biostats? I'm going off on them. For those who have it. Is it chapter 14's biostats, or is it chapter 15? Is it 9 through 14? Whoever's got the book in front of them could tell me. Anyways, do all the calculations, chapters, and modules. Do the biostats. Do the top sellers. Be solid on that for the next test if you can.
If you guys think of anything, you can always send us an email. We're here. You can send it to Dr. Ofsted. You can send it to myself, any one of us, and we can make sure we get your questions answered. And don't forget about the classroom. The classroom is open to you. I'm going to be putting announcements in there. I was putting some in as we had the meeting today. And then the board prep resources. Don't forget to take a look at that, and we'll continue to add to it.
Okay.
Thank you.
It was nice talking at you and a little bit with you today. Let me know if I can help. Happy to be here. Thank you, Rosemary.
You're welcome. Bye. Thank you, guys. Have a good weekend. Be safe.
Dr. Ofsted, I have a quick question.
Yeah, I'll stay on.
Everybody else can go, but okay, for the poll that I'm going to send out, is it for the tips and tricks, or is it also for if people are interested in meeting with you in a separate session?
Well, you could ask. Both, I guess. And you can put other things. If you can think of other things. The thing that is hard on me is if everybody wants to meet one at a time. I'm willing to do it if we have to, because everyone has a different question that needs to be addressed. But it's better if I can get collections of questions together and answer them together. So if there's themes that can come up with, like one theme that was raised today is, hey, what are the different ways that people study beyond, just what was shared today? So, like, if you want to do that face to face, we can do that. We can bring in speakers for that. It's nice to know about how many too. So that's what the survey would help with. Like, you did a doodle or whatever. Okay, yeah, I probably would come to a session if the timing worked. I would come to a session that was about study tips and tricks from alums, right? And recent test takers, people who've taken it recently, know whether their system worked.
And this would be a virtual session too, correct?
Yes.
Okay.
I mean, it doesn't have to be, but everybody's everywhere, right? So for right now, that's true.
Okay, that'll work. That'll give me something to start with, and then I'll see what else students want to do with the class.
Thank you,
All right,
Karen, for taking
Doc.
a proactive role. I appreciate it.
Thank you, Dr.